Not all of us, though, can belong to one of these powerful bloodlines. So they have a game here that we can play, so we can participate in the type of games they play. And it was kind of interesting that this game has cards that represent the different things that you are to control to win the game. And these are a few of the cards of the game, and they are also the type of things that the Illuminati control. Those of you who want to understand this further can look at it on your own. Now, the United States military has a lot of handbooks. This is a handbook for chaplains. It explains those religious groups that are recognized by the United States military. And in this book are a number of witchcraft organizations, including the Church of Satan. And in this handbook, it explains that within witchcraft, there are 3 degrees, which is correct. If we look at this diagram, we'll see the basic structure of the secret Illuminati. Back in 1776, they structured the Illuminati with 13 positions. But around the time of the American Civil War, they restructured it somewhat so that what they created was this first level, your anarchy level here, and then a hierarchy level, and then your special committees and councils. This is very similar to excuse me. This is very similar to what we saw on our diagram, where you had your remember on your Gnostic religions, where you had your broad mass religions and your initiate group. On the anarchy level, you'll find thousands of different witchcraft groups that each have their own rituals and their own beliefs, and they look disassociated and unorganized and unrelated. But then, if you are selected to go beyond that, you will enter the hierarchy level. And as a little girl, for instance, you would be part of Sisters of Light. And then as a teenager, you'd be inducted into the Mothers of Darkness. And then you would progress to the Grandmother level. And they have many special committees and councils. For instance, your Council of 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, your Grand Druid Council, your Committee of 300, your Committee of 500. Over here, you see represented again that same 3-tiered pattern that I was talking about. And this is the Satanic Brotherhood, which is organized in hubs. The Satanic Brotherhood and Illuminati are like this. They're essentially one organization. Except the Illuminati is technically Gnostic dualism. They believe that your good deeds must balance your bad deeds. If you were to follow the life of somebody that was inducted through one of the Illuminati orders, like the Order of the Skull and Bones, you'll see that they are tapped as a candidate for first year or night, and a patriarch may rise to leadership within the Skull and Bones. From there, you'll see that they progress to the Council of Foreign Relations, whose equivalent is the Royal Institute of International Affairs, then to the Round Table groups, and then to the Pilgrim Society. The Pilgrim Society is far more powerful than Council of Foreign Relations, although very few people know about it and talk about it. And this is your OTO. Now this is a very important scripture to share with you. It says, and upon her head was written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. I'm just going to go through this as quick as I can. Babylon the Great is fallen. It's become the habitations of devils and the hold of every foul spirit. All nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. It goes on to talk about her slaves and how she sells the souls of men. And it says, by thy sorceries were all nations deceived, and in her was found the blood of the prophets and of the saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. I want to draw out 2 points from this. Now, the popular Protestant interpretation of this set of scriptures is that this is referring to the Catholic Church. Ladies and gentlemen, the Catholic Church wasn't even in existence when most of the prophets, the biblical prophets, were slain. This is referring to Babylon the Great, Babylon the mystery religions, which is today the Illuminati. And I also point out to you that there it says, all that were slain upon the earth. So God is a greater conspiratorialist than I am. He's laying at the feet of this one organization, the mystery religions, all the blood of all of these innocent people down through the years. It's very interesting when you're a researcher like myself and you go in and see how all these wars were created for the powerful elite and all of their assassination squads and everything. I have a better understanding for why God said all that were slain upon the earth are the fault of this mother of harlots. So the Catholic Church is a daughter of the harlot. We're not talking about a Jewish conspiracy. We're not talking about a Catholic conspiracy. We're talking about a conspiracy that involves all the nations of the earth. And in the Scottish Rites Journal of this year, they talk about the double eagle. Now, this is a logo that comes from Babylon, and many countries around the world have adopted it. And these are a few of the countries over here that have adopted it. You've got Israel and Mexico and France and Germany and Turkey and Bolivia and Chile and Honduras and Italy, and another country that has adopted it that's not given there is Canada. And this real quickly, I'm going to go through the next a few pieces of documentation very quickly. Try to hold it here for just a few seconds so that they can zero in on it. But it's telling us, comes from the Talmud, that the Talmud comes from Babylon. And this, from the Jewish Encyclopedia, is telling us how the Pharisees learned their beliefs from Babylon. What happened is that during the captivity, the mystery religions created a branch of themselves, the Pharisees. And in this next item, which comes from the Jewish Encyclopedia, it teaches us that the Pharisees, which was a branch of the mystery religions, then took over the life of the Jewish people, and it says Phariseeism shaped the character of Judaism and the life and thought of the Jew for all the future. They're known as rabbis. And this piece of documentation is just telling us that the Talmud ranks above the Torah. What's the Torah? First few books of the Bible, and this is very similar to what's happened in the Catholic system, where the Pope's traditions have become more important than the Bible itself. And this article was written for to be sent out around the world. It was the Jewish Post International Edition. And this is an article by a rabbi, and I won't read it due to time, but he says that if you were born Jewish, you are divine. And this is from another recent Jewish magazine. It's advertising amulets of protection for one's home or office. Now, back in Frankfurt, Germany, there was a family named Bauer, and they had this hexagram amulet on a red sign to protect their house, and they were named after this sign. In German, this red sign, Rotschild, was given to the family, and that's how the Rothschilds were named. When I went in and looked at what was going on, I found that surprisingly there was just as strong a Scottish contingency in the Illuminati as your Jewish contingency, and I don't have time to go through all the names here on this clan map of Scotland, but you'll see the Kennedys, which is a top 13 Illuminati bloodline. You'll find the Stewarts, who are good friends with the Rockefellers. You'll find the Morgans up here, for instance. Who hasn't heard of Morgan Guarantee? And here are the Sinclairs. They were given a hereditary leadership of Freemasonry and are members of the top 13, the top 13th Illuminati bloodline, the Merovingian Holy Bloodline. Throughout the world, Satan's empire is built on Gnostic knowledge. Okay? Gnostic knowledge, this hidden knowledge. There are three words: occult, arcane, and esoteric. All three mean hidden. That is the type of knowledge that these groups claim to have, because it gives them an instant power base. And this is the key to seeing Satan's worship around the world. These are 5 interlocked concepts. This is the key, and I won't go into it in detail, but now you know that there is a key to unlock, to see that hidden underneath all these different religious worships around the world is satanic worship. This is the caduceus. The Illuminati are Gnostics that have a dualistic belief of balancing their good deeds with their bad deeds. That's why some of the greatest philanthropists are also some of the biggest Illuminati Satanists. A lot of their good deeds, though, are self-serving. And the caduceus is found in China, India, and other places in the world. A lot of people don't believe that there's such a thing as satanic ritual abuse. So I got this. This was in a museum. And as is typical of Illuminati oaths, they sign them in blood. And this is an oath to Satan to give you my body and soul in my life. And this was an extremely secret Illuminati castle until I began this circuit. This is the gate, the entrance to a lane that leads to the castle. This castle is near the town of Muno, and it's near the French border. It's in Belgium. And the town of Muno is rather strange in itself because the village is connected to the people that run this castle. This castle is used for high-level Mother of Darkness rituals. Perhaps that right here, the Abbey du Orval, that is a very significant abbey for the Merovingian dynasty. And it's only about 4 or 5 miles from the castle. And it was in this area that King Dagobert of the Merovingians was assassinated. We'll see a skull later. The Illuminati adepts learn that they do path working of the Kabbalah. They also go through different occult sciences. Last one being vampirism, which is called the Holy Grail, and this is why you will see these top Illuminati men addicted to blood. This is why you will see that, well, backtracking just a little bit, the establishment news media said that the reason why Al Gore carried blood in a suitcase was that he was a hemophiliac. But the truth of the matter is that he's become addicted to blood. And now we're going to discuss very briefly with you. I can get my pen to point. We're going to discuss very briefly with you the basic policy process within the United States. Of course, as you can see, it's not what the people think it is. We're going to go through this very quickly. This is worthy of maybe a few books. Here at the top, on the international level, on the top satanic levels, decisions are being made. Those decisions are being passed down to the national level. If you go back in the occult world, you'll read a man named Plato, and he talks about the wise men ruling. That occult concept was passed on down, and you'll read in Francis Bacon's book, The New Atlantis, which originally had a title with the word of Rosicrucian, that they wanted to create a group of wise men to rule in the New World, and that concept has indeed been implemented. That study group or wise men group is called Majesty 12, and it's been given a lot of code names. They just sometimes just seem to happen to meet each other. And originally it was set up 6 men from the executive committee of the Jason Society, 6 men of the executive committee of the Jason Group, and 6 men of other key positions along with a chairman. And I believe in Reagan's administration they upped the number to 40. And this group on their classified papers has the word magic, M-A-J-I-C, stamped on it. But they can't make all the decisions. So they pass some of the decisions on to the policy planning groups, which I've listed over here: the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Brookings Institute, the Business Roundtable, the American Enterprise Institute, the Population Council, Resources for the Future, and the Urban Institute. But those people can't make all the decisions, so they pass them on down the line, some of them on down the line, to the research policy planning groups, such as the RAND Corporation, the Stanford Research Institute, and the Hudson Institute. Now, how does this work in actuality? Let's say the Illuminati have made a decision as to something they want to implement. They'll get somebody, say the president, announce, we have a problem. Then the president will say, we have a problem. We need to initiate a government study of this problem. And then they will pour millions of dollars into a government study, and maybe after 10 years come up with a large number of findings that are printed in these thick books that even researchers like myself don't wade through. And the bottom line is the decision that they had decided upon long ago. And then they get their opinion makers, government councils, national news medias, and intelligence agencies to help them out to make it appear like there's grassroots support at different levels. And so the legislators say, we had this problem, we did this study, this is the best advice, and they pass a law. Now, if they have any problems along the way, they have their covert enforcers like the Mafia and the IRS and FBI and ADL to smooth out the opposition. Hidden behind the scenes, the Illuminati have created occult area boards in all the areas. Of course, you got your 4 regions with 13 states each, and then within each of those, you've got a small section that's given an occult area board. All your different groups working within a given area, if they're working, collaborating with the Illuminati, will send participants or representatives. So as an example of how this works, your own cult in Japan, the Illuminati area board over there decided, let's build up the own cult. They pull people from other cults into the cult to build it up. Then when they wanted to make regional government for the United States, what pattern did they follow? Their area boards. Is a twilight world of the interconnections between organized crime and the Illuminati. As you'll notice, some of the Mishbuka and the Triad and the Mafia and the P2 Freemason families are tied in blood-wise, family-wise with the Illuminati. But the whole thing is one slimy mess that interconnects. And this one I won't show, but it's just on the Illuminati control of healthcare. We don't have time to go into that. I'll let you glance at this next one here for a minute. I knew I was going to be coming to the Midwest, and I knew that there were a lot of good farm people. And I have a monograph that explains this particular transparency in case you want more information. And you can get this through Prophecy Club. This is Illuminati and mob control of Hollywood. And of course, you'll notice that very important part of that was Music Corporation of America, who got sweetheart deals from these groups here. Go through and look at who's in charge of things. You'll find lots of Illuminati names. And this is Federal Reserve, and you'll notice very nice, nice, that's not a nice word to use here, but at any rate you'll notice Illuminati names: Rockefeller, Russell, Peabody, Reynolds, Warburg, Pine, Morgan as original stockholders of the Federal Reserve. This was in my book, Be Wise as Serpents, and I went into detail about how these different components control Christianity. For instance, I went denomination by denomination and gave high-ranking Freemasons who were important clergymen in these denominations. For instance, for the Episcopal Church, this was the list of Freemasons within the Episcopal Church. And here is an example of how Christians are using a Masonic lodge as a church. Joseph Smith Jr. created Mormonism. Here are some of his magic amulets that he used. Here's his serpent staff that he used. Here's his ritual anathema that he used. Joseph Smith Jr. came from an important occult bloodline. All of the leaders of the RLDS Church and the LDS Church have been members of the same bloodline. They go back to the tribe of Dan and the Merovingians, and I believe that Gordon B. Hinckley, who's now leader of the LDS Church, goes back to the Merovingians via Nathaniel Hinckley, who's tied back into the Plantagenet family. And here's some more. This is a green seer stone of Joseph Smith Jr. and some of his magic parchment. And his successor of the main group, Brigham Young, here is his Masonic pin, and that's Dagwood's skull, and that was one of the leaders of the Merovingian Priory of Zion. Now, the man who started the Jehovah's Witnesses, Charles Taze Russell, was a Knights Templar Freemason, and as you can read here, Charles Taze Russell, ritually murdered by the Illuminati on Halloween, has his ashes protected below a pink granite pyramid made from the sacred Enchanted Rock Mountain at a sacred site 18 miles north of Fredericksburg, Texas. The pyramid is in a cemetery in what was Allegheny, Pennsylvania, now Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Real quickly, here are some actual members of the Illuminati from these various bloodlines. John Jacob Astor, for instance, within a matter of a few years, had a monopoly on the entire fur trade. And if you stop to think about it, the fur trade had been going on for centuries before he arrived. And here's some Illuminati from the DuPont family. The DuPonts are key people in the military-industrial complex every day. Each one of us cannot escape using something made from chemical products that the DuPonts are involved with. They also have been major manufacturers of American gunpowder for our different wars. And this is the Freeman Illuminati family. Gaylord Freeman in charge of the Priory of Zion for a while, and he was advisor to 2 presidents, so was Roger A. Freeman. And here's one of the Freeman in the Skull and Bones. And this is the Kennedys. JFK's sister married into British royalty. Joseph Kennedy once remarked on one of the marriages that didn't go through, if my daughter had married, my son-in-law would have been the head of all Freemasons. And here's JFK making his pilgrimage to the pyramids, just like Ulysses Grant made a pilgrimage to the pyramids, and so did Charles Taze Russell and many of the others. This is what we're going to discuss about in depth. This woman here, Marilyn Monroe, was the first presidential sex model slave that they allowed the public to see. I believe in these pictures here, we're watching her switch personalities. James Manfield, who was under mind control, she was one of JFK's girlfriends, and she's a member of LaVey's Church of Satan, and Sammy Davis Jr. was also under LaVey's control, and a member of a Church of Satan, and also a good friend of JFK. Here's Li Ka-shun, Illuminati billionaire in Hong Kong, who has quite a bit of things in Canada. And here is Winthrop Rockefeller. He supplied money to finance Clinton. He is reported to have the world's largest porn collection. And here's Guy de Rothschild, who in French we might say Guida, and I believe that this man is probably the father of either the Antichrist or the Antichrist John the Baptist. And this is his son David over here in one of their mansions. And here is Billy. And this sign using the left hand, this for some people could mean I love you. Sign with the left hand, sign of Satan, but it's got a more significant meaning. This is one of the ways that they induct people into trance who are slaves. And then here, Adolf Hitler and his grandmother. His grandmother was impregnated by the Rothschilds in Vienna, and then Hitler's father was paid money to change his name from Schicklgruber to Hitler. Now we're going to talk about the mind control. And you will notice that I saved this for last. I realized that even if I spent all 3 hours on this topic, I could barely scratch the surface. And I was very reluctant to open up this Pandora's box and start talking about something that's so vast and complex a subject that I can barely pull the pieces together to make it a coherent subject for you without raising a lot more questions. But recently there's been a number of books come out on the mind control, but most of them are very superficial. You'll really want to get this to understand it better. Someone who got this said, Fritz, after I got this, I was so excited about the subject, and I got a whole bunch of other books on the subject, and they all turned out to be vague. And I said, yes, I know that's the case. And another illustration about this book is somebody who came in off the streets, who knew nothing about anything and was a teenager, picked this up and couldn't put it down. and 20 pages later had to be torn from it. Now, you may be wondering, how do they do this mind control? Well, the book will explain it. That's why I wrote the book. I can't go into the details of how they do this mind control. But I can say simply that it is a very sophisticated combination of every mind control technique that has ever been thought up. Okay? Now, if you talk or listen to someone in the CIA, sometimes you will hear them say, well, we tried behavioral modification, but it only works in such a percentage of the cases. And we tried this method of mind control, but it only works in a small percentage of the cases. And we tried this, and they make it appear like they've discarded all of these. The truth is if you take this method of mind control, which only works, let's say, in 70% of the cases, and match it to this type of mind control, which only works in 70% of the cases, and match it to this, and make a group package, by the time you've gone through all these many different types of mind control, you create something that totally locks the person into your control.